stood before the mirror in Hennery's sunlit apartment, the morning light softening the edges of her reflection. The air carried the faint warmth of coffee and lavender, a stark contrast to the sterile marble halls of Alex's mansion. But the quiet was a double-edged sword. It cradled her, yet left space for memories to slither in, uninvited. Her reflection stared back, pale skin, shadowed eyes, hair tangled from restless sleep. For 7 years, she'd sculpted herself into Alex's ideal, her wardrobe chosen to please him, her voice tempered to his liking, her dreams buried to fit his world. She barely recognized the woman in the glass, her fists clenched at her sides, nails biting into her palms. "Never again," she whispered, her voice fierce, a vow to the stranger she'd become. The door creaked behind her. Hennery leaned against the frame, his presence steady, his hazel eyes soft but piercing. "Mina," he said, his voice low and warm, "I got a call from a friend at the design firm downtown. There's an opening. You used to live for design. Your sketches, your ideas. Isn't that what you always wanted?" Her breath hitched. The word design cracked open a door she'd sealed shut years ago when Alex's voice had dismissed her dreams. A CEO's wife doesn't need a career. Stay home, Mina. The memory stung, but Hennery's words sparked something fragile, something alive. Her voice wavered, her fingers trembling. "I don't know if I'm still capable." Hennery stepped closer, his hand resting lightly on her shoulder, his touch grounding. "You are," he said, his tone unyielding, his eyes burning with conviction. "The Mina I knew never backed down from a challenge. You've just been lost for a while. Let me help you find yourself again." Tears pricked her eyes, not just from pain, but from a flicker of hope she hadn't felt in years. It was small, tentative, but it warmed her chest like an ember in the dark. Across the city, in the Blackwood mansion, the air was heavy with tension. Alex sat in his study, the leather chair creaking under his rigid posture. A glossy magazine lay open on his desk, its pages screaming betrayal. A candid photo of Mina, wrapped in Hennery's coat, her faint smile illuminated by the riverside's glow. Sophia stormed in, her heels stabbing the hardwood floor, the sound sharp as her voice. "Alex!" she snapped, slamming the magazine down harder, as if to bury the image. "Are you following her?" Alex's jaw tightened, his fingers curling around the broken pen he hadn't noticed he'd snapped. He had followed Mina that night, driven by an impulse he couldn't name. The sight of her leaning into Hennery's warmth had seared itself into his mind, a wound he didn't understand. "She's gone," Sophia hissed, circling him like a predator. "She's nothing now. Why do you care what she does? You have me." Her voice dripped with possessive confidence, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of fear. Alex's gaze darkened, his voice low and cutting. "Don't compare yourself to her." Sophia froze, her face draining of color before twisting into a mask of fury. "Don't tell me you regret throwing her out," she spat, her voice trembling with rage. "After everything I gave up to come back to you, enough." His tone was ice, his eyes a storm that silenced her. Sophia's lips parted, but no words came. She stood, trembling, her nails digging crescent marks into her palms, then turned and stormed out, her heels echoing like gunshots. Alone, Alex stared at the magazine. Mina's smile, small, fragile, but real, mocked him. For the first time, he wondered if he'd misjudged her silence all those years, and the thought unsettled him more than he cared to admit. That evening, Mina sat at Hennery's dining table, a sketchpad spread before her. Her pencil moved hesitantly, lines shaky but growing bolder with each stroke. The act of designing, once her lifeblood, felt foreign, yet thrilling, like rediscovering a lost language. Her heart raced, a quiet excitement stirring beneath the weight of her pain. Hennery set a steaming mug of tea beside her, his smile warm but restrained. "See? You haven't lost it." She looked up, her lips parting, caught off guard by the pride in his eyes. His belief in her, unwavering and selfless, made her chest ache, not with the sharp pain of betrayal, but with something softer, more dangerous. Hope. Before she could speak, her phone buzzed on the table. The screen lit up with a name that stopped her heart. Alex. Her hand froze, her breath shallow. Why was he calling? After discarding her, after choosing Sophia, what right did he have to reach out now? The phone vibrated again, insistent, pulling at the scars of 7 years. Hennery's gaze flickered to the screen, his jaw tightening, but he said nothing. His silence was a quiet trust, giving her the space to choose. Mina's hand hovered, trembling. 7 years ago, she would have answered in a heartbeat, desperate for his attention. But tonight, something shifted. She pressed decline, the small act sending a jolt of power through her veins. Her chest ached, but her eyes burned with a newfound strength. For the first time, she chose herself. Hennery's expression softened, a faint smile tugging at his lips. He didn't need to say anything. His pride in her was clear. Across the city in the dim glow of his study, Alex stared at his phone, the call rejected. The silence that followed was deafening, cutting deeper than he'd expected. For 7 years, Mina had always answered, always waited, always bent to his will. Her absence now was a void he hadn't anticipated. His hand tightened around the phone, knuckles white. A hollow ache spread through his chest, mingling with the unfamiliar sting of jealousy. She was slipping away, and the realization twisted something deep inside him. He'd told himself she didn't matter, that Sophia was enough. But as he stared at the empty screen, Alex felt the first cracks in his certainty, and the weight of a regret he wasn't ready to name. Morning sunlight poured through the towering glass windows of Lux Design's lobby, casting a warm glow across the polished concrete floor. Mina stood clutching her portfolio to her chest, her pulse hammering like a drum in her ears. The scent of fresh ink and leather lingered in the air, a reminder of a world she'd once loved, a world she'd abandoned for Alex. It had been years since she'd stepped into a place like this, years since she'd dared to dream. Her palms were slick with nerves, but beneath the fear, a quiet resolve stirred. The receptionist glanced up, her smile professional but kind. "Miss Hayes, the director is ready for you." Mina inhaled deeply, squaring her shoulders, and stepped into the sleek office. The director, a wiry man with sharp eyes, flipped through her sketches, his brows lifting in quiet surprise. "These are unpolished, but there's something here. Raw talent." He leaned back, studying her. "You've been out of the game for years, haven't you?" "Yes," Mina admitted, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. "But I never stopped designing in my mind. I can learn again. I will learn again." Her conviction hung in the air, unwavering. The director held her gaze for a long moment, then nodded. "Trial basis. Don't make me regret this." When Mina stepped out into the sunlight, her heart pounded, not with fear, but with a fierce, unfamiliar pride. For the first time in 7 years, she was carving a path for herself, not for Alex, not for anyone else. The weight of her portfolio felt like a promise, not a burden. That evening, Hennery drove her back to his apartment, stealing glances at her radiant expression. "So," he asked, a grin tugging at his lips. "How'd it go?" Mina bit her lip, a smile breaking through like dawn after a long night. "I got the trial. I'm a designer again." Hennery's grin widened, his hazel eyes softening with pride. "I knew it. You're unstoppable when you let yourself shine." Her chest warmed, the words sinking into the cracks of her battered heart. For so long, she'd been invisible, her worth measured by Alex's indifference. But in Hennery's gaze, she glimpsed the woman she'd once been, and the woman she was becoming. In the Blackwood mansion, the air was thick with unspoken tension. Alex sat in his study, the leather chair creaking under his rigid frame. A single sheet of paper lay before him, delivered by his assistant with a nervous glance. It wasn't a business report, it was about her. Mina Hayes accepted a design position at Lux Designs. His fingers tightened, crumpling the edge of the page. Memories flooded unbidden. Mina's sketches scattered across their dining table, her eyes alight with passion as she spoke of textures and colors. He dismissed it all, told her to focus on being his wife, to bury her dreams for his convenience. And now, she was reclaiming them, without him. Sophia's voice sliced through his thoughts, sharp and venomous. "So, she's playing designer now?" She stood in the doorway, arms crossed, her crimson nails glinting like claws. "Pathetic. She's just desperate to prove she's over you." Alex didn't respond. His jaw clenched, his silence a storm brewing beneath the surface. Sophia's eyes narrowed, a chill creeping up her spine. He was thinking about Mina again. Always Mina. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a hiss. "You're not regretting this, are you?" "She was nothing, Alex. A shadow. I'm your future." His gaze flicked to her, cold and unyielding. "Don't presume to know what I regret." Sophia's breath caught, her confidence faltering. She turned on her heel, her nails digging into her palms as she stalked out. If Alex was wavering, she wouldn't let Mina steal him back, not without a fight. 2 nights later, Mina emerged from the design firm, her arms laden with rolled-up sketches, the weight of them grounding her. The street was quiet, street lamps casting golden pools on the pavement, the air crisp with the promise of autumn. She felt alive, her heart thrumming with purpose. Then she saw him. Alex leaned against his sleek black car, his tailored suit impeccable, his presence commanding the night. But his eyes, dark, intense, and laced with something unfamiliar, pinned her in place. Regret? Vulnerability? She couldn't tell, but it made her breath catch. "Mina," he said, his voice low, almost hesitant. She stiffened, clutching her sketches like a shield. "What are you doing here, Alex?" He stepped closer, his gaze searching hers with an intensity that sent a shiver down her spine. "I needed to see you." Her chest tightened, a painful mix of anger and longing. For 7 years, she'd craved those words, that look. Now they were poison. Too late, too cruel. "Why?" Her voice cracked, sharp with disbelief. "Because Sophia isn't enough? Because you're bored now that I'm not waiting at your table?" Alex's jaw tightened, his hands flexing at his sides. "I made a mistake, Mina." She laughed, a bitter sound that echoed in the quiet street, though tears stung her eyes. "A mistake? 7 years of my life, Alex. 7 years of loving you, of breaking myself to fit your world. That wasn't a mistake. That was my everything. And you threw it away." He reached for her hand, his touch warm but unwelcome. She jerked back, her sketches nearly slipping. "Don't," she snapped, her voice trembling but fierce. "I'm not that woman anymore. I don't need your validation. I don't need you." For the first time, Alex looked powerless, his polished facade cracking. She'd always been the quiet one, the one who yielded. Now her strength, raw, unyielding, terrified him. Hennery's car pulled up, the engine's hum cutting through the tension. He stepped out, his gaze narrowing as he spotted Alex. "Is he bothering you?" he asked, his tone sharp but controlled, his presence a steady anchor. Mina shook her head, her voice firm despite the tremor in her hands. "No, he's just leaving." Alex's chest constricted as she turned toward Hennery, her steps deliberate, her silhouette framed by the streetlights. For the first time, she wasn't choosing him. The realization burned, a regret sharper than he'd ever known. As Hennery's car pulled away, Alex stood alone, the night closing in around him. He'd told himself Mina was replaceable, but now, watching her walk away, he felt the weight of what he'd lost, and the fear that he might never get it back. Mina threw herself into her work at Lux Designs, the late nights blurring into a rhythm of purpose. The studio's hum, pencils scratching, fabric swatches rustling, the soft glow of desk lamps felt like a heartbeat, proof she was alive again. No longer just Alex's shadow, she was stitching herself back together, one sketch at a time. One evening, she caught her reflection in the studio's glass wall. Her hair was swept into a neat bun, her posture tall, her eyes alight with a fire she hadn't seen in years. "This is who I was meant to be," she thought, the realization settling like a quiet vow. Outside, Hennery leaned against his car, his warm smile breaking through the evening chill as she approached. "Long day?" he asked, opening the passenger door with a familiar ease. Mina nodded, a faint smile softening her lips. Long, but worth it. As she slid into the seat, her gaze lingered on him. With Hennery, the world felt lighter, her existence no longer measured by someone else's approval. In his quiet presence, she wasn't invisible. She was seen. Across town, the Blackwood mansion loomed like a mausoleum, its silence oppressive. Alex sat in his study, the amber glow of his untouched whiskey catching the dim light. The ice melted slowly, pooling like his thoughts. Circling back to Mina. 7 years she'd waited for him, her quiet devotion a constant he'd dismissed. Now she was out there, laughing with another man, rebuilding a life without him. The thought twisted in his chest, a cocktail of rage, jealousy, and something sharper, regret. The sharp click of heels shattered his reverie. Sophia sauntered in, her silk robe clinging to her curves, her voice a saccharine purr. "Alex, you haven't touched me in days. Are you really sulking over her?" His gaze snapped to her, cold and cutting. "Get out." Sophia's smirk faltered, her eyes narrowing. "Don't tell me you regret letting her go." Her voice dripped with disdain, but a flicker of fear betrayed her. Alex's silence was deafening, a confession he wouldn't voice. Sophia's jaw tightened, fury coiling like a snake in her chest. She'd fought too hard to reclaim Alex, clawed her way back into his world. She wouldn't lose him to Mina. Not again. "Fine," she said, her tone syrupy but laced with venom. "If you can't forget her, I'll make sure everyone else does." She turned, her robe swishing like a warning, her mind already spinning plans. Days later, Mina arrived at Lux Designs to a chilling shift in the air. Colleagues' whispers followed her, their glances a mix of smirks and pity. Her stomach churned as she entered the studio, and froze. Her sketches lay scattered across the table, slashed with red ink like wounds. Beside them, a printed article screamed, "CEO's abandoned wife attempts pathetic comeback, using pity to climb the ladder." Photos of her haunted her from the page, leaving Alex's mansion, sobbing on the bridge, walking with Hennery, each moment twisted with cruel captions. Her hands trembled as she clutched the article, her throat closing. Who would do this? But the answer was a blade in her gut, Sophia. The director stormed in, the article crumpled in his hand. His expression was stern but not unkind. "Miss Hayes, talent matters here, but scandals like this hurt our reputation. Prove you're worth the risk, or you won't last." Mina swallowed hard, her chest tight with humiliation. "I understand," she said, her voice steady despite the storm inside. "I won't let you down." When he left, she gathered her ruined sketches, her hands shaking, her breath shallow. The weight of Sophia's cruelty threatened to crush her fragile confidence. Then, a warm hand covered hers. "Mina?" Hennery's voice was a lifeline, steady and sure. He crouched beside her, his hazel eyes fierce with conviction. "Don't let them break you. You've survived worse than this. You're stronger than they know." Her lips quivered, tears blurring her vision. "What if I fail, Hennery? What if I'm not enough?" He gripped her hands, his touch firm but gentle. "Then I'll be here, every step, until you succeed. You're not alone anymore." Her tears fell, not just from pain, but from the warmth of his belief in her. For the first time, she felt the strength to fight, not just for herself, but for the life she was rebuilding. That night, Alex sat in his car outside Lux Designs, the engine idling like his restless thoughts. Mina emerged, Hennery at her side, her face glowing despite the weight of her sketches. She was vibrant, alive. And it wasn't because of him. His grip tightened on the steering wheel, knuckles white. She was mine. For 7 years. She was mine. The sight of her leaning into Hennery's presence ignited a fire in his chest. Jealousy, raw and consuming. His eyes darkened, a dangerous resolve taking root. "Mina, you can try to run. You can try to rebuild. But I won't let you go. Not again." For the first time, Alex understood the depth of his mistake. It wasn't just regret, it was obsession. A need to reclaim what he'd lost, no matter the cost.